All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Dana Doyle, and on behalf of MIT, I am delighted to welcome you to Resilience, Growth, and Perseverance, Lessons from MicroMasters Learners. And I will tell you, all three of those things apply to anybody who can finish the MicroMasters. They're very challenging. So thank you for joining us for what promises to be an inspiring and energizing conversation about ambition, learning, and the transformative journeys of MIT MicroMasters learners around the world. Today, you'll hear from three extraordinary individuals whose stories highlight the power of persistence, curiosity, and lifelong learning. They come from different countries, work in different sectors, and are shaping impact in different ways, but they share a commitment to growth that led them to MIT's rigorous online programs. We'll begin with a guided discussion, followed by time for questions at the end. We did get some questions through the RSVP, so we'll probably pull a couple of those and answer those. All right, so let's jump in. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. We have Sofia Martinez Galvez, an entrepreneur and development economist whose work spans East and West Africa, designing and scaling evidence-based programs in education and health. She holds a master's in data economics and development policy from MIT as a Fulbright Scholar. Malintu Wesley is a technologist and economist with more than 20 years of experience across the US and Africa. His work focuses on AI, digital transformation, and data-driven systems, and he brings expertise in both economics and computer science. Satik Movesian is a finance professional dedicated to strengthening America's capital markets. She completed the MicroMasters in Finance on her way to pursuing her long-term vision and now works in asset management, shaping tools and analysis that directly impact pension assets for hundreds of thousands of future retirees. So thank you all for joining us today. I know you're all coming from different time zones and different areas, so really appreciate your flexibility. So to begin with, I'd love to hear briefly from each of you. So the first question, which is probably one of the key things to being able to do a MicroMasters, is what motivated you to pursue an MITx MicroMasters program anyway? And what were you hoping to gain from the experience? So I think let's start with Sofia, and then Sofia, if you could pass it to somebody else, one of the other two panelists, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Of course. So in my case, thank you so much for the introduction, by the way. And regarding the question that you asked, I wanted to transition from the private sector into international development. I actually studied physics, and after some experiences in Ghana, I decided I wanted to work professionally in development. So my purpose when I joined the MicroMasters was to use it as a lever to completely change sectors. Um, yeah, and I can pass it to Sadik.
Yep.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's great to have everyone today, and I'm really happy to share with you about my journey with MicroMaster in Finance by MIT. So my journey started a little bit a very long time ago, I would say, even before my undergraduate degree started. So I think probably many people know how transformative was input of MIT in the field of finance, and I was always inspired by that. And seeing my future career in finance, and in particular in asset management, and aspiring to pursue full-time master's degree at MIT Sloan in the future, I was constantly searching tangent points with the school to understand whether the curriculum is fitting to me and whether it's a real fit. So, and I discovered the MicroMaster in Finance program, and my ultimate goal, as Dana mentioned, is the transformation of capital markets in Armenia, because I deem asset management and capital markets transformation as a powerful tool to transform economic development and prosperity of the state. So yeah, my expectation was to prepare for the full-time masters and also upskill sort of myself in my professional experience. So I currently work in the asset management, in particular at Sekvadrat Ampega, we're managing pension assets. Yeah, and MicroMasters, we'll talk about that later, but it served its all the goals, I would say.
Awesome. All right, Malintu, how about you?
Yeah, hey. I would say that I have this interesting background. I've done a lot of things in my life, but there's three threads that sort of go through everything that I've been involved in, and it's Africa, some technology, and economic development. And so at the time I was serving as an advisor to the Ministry of Finance in Liberia, and I was looking for other opportunities to expand my experience. I had lived in Africa for over 15 years, and I had not had an advanced degree, and so I was thinking of maybe getting one in computer science or economics, and but I didn't want to get one in Liberia, and so I looked online, and there's this interesting program, and it sort of aligned with a lot of the my perspectives on economics. I studied economics in college, and one of the issues I had with it was the approach that even in macroeconomics took at that time with poor countries. It was there's this idea that a lot of countries were backwards, that they had failed institutions, that there was corruption, and these were so fuzzy concepts that sort of placed their economic growth in sort of a different category as other versus other countries, and it really didn't seem like it explained a lot of what was really going on. As someone from that part of the world, it wasn't an interesting answer to me, and but it sort of turned me away from economics. But then when I looked into this program, it had a lot of the things that I was interested in the data economics, and at that time it was called development policy. Now it's design of policy, and it was a mix of math, of statistics, of it had some programming in it, and it took an approach to the third world countries, or some parts of the world that have not gained as much economically in the past half of a century and so forth. As there are some underlying issues, and it's better to go there and use a data-driven approach to sort of tease out what the problems are, and not look at these people as they're crazy or just doing weird things, but to see them as solving problems at their level that we may not fully understand unless we look at it specifically through the lens of poor people. And that's attracted me to the program. And so that's, as I dived in a little bit, I was more and more encouraged to pursue this, and I saw how there were opportunities to get a master's after the micromasters. And so that attracted me to the program. I'm really happy that I got an opportunity to go through it, and everything else that came out of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so thank you all for sharing what inspired you to pursue the programs. And I'm going to ask you each a question or two about how you've applied what you've learned. And a couple of you have already answered a little bit of that, but maybe you can go into a little more detail. So Sophia, I'm going to start with you. So your work across Africa has involved building programs from scratch, running large-scale evaluations, and managing complex pilots. And so how did the MicroMasters in Data Economics and Development Policy shape the way you approach designing or assessing real-world interventions?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I was mentioning before, the MicroMasters didn't just strengthen my technical skills, but it also was a turning point in my career. Um, the MicroMasters became that bridge between the private sector and international development, and it gave me rigorous training in economics and data analysis, as well as very practical skills to think about impact, policy design, especially randomized evaluations and evidence-based decision making. Until recently, I was managing my own organization, and the mindset that the program ingrained in my thinking was showing up everywhere. I led our monitoring and evaluation work, trying to understand how the implementation of our programs was having an impact on children in Uganda, on the reading skills that they have. But also, it was going beyond that. whether we were discussing strategy, operations, fundraising, I was always trying to bring this like data-driven lens to the conversations and ask like, what evidence do we have? What assumptions are we testing? So for me, the MicroMasters was not didn't just like provided a lot of useful tools, but also kind of like fundamentally shaped how I approach real world challenges and work.
Great, thank you. Mylene, too, I'm going to ask you to, and you talked a bit about some of this. So I think for this one, I wanted to ask you about how the MicroMasters help you bridge the disciplines of economics, technology, and AI. And maybe if you could give a brief description of a project or two and how they fill a local or regional need, that would be a great part to start with. And maybe if there were 1 to 2 concepts that you gathered from the program itself that kind of really impacted the way that you designed or ran these projects.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm fortunate enough after I left, after I finished the MicroMasters, and I continued to the master's program, and so after that, I have been working as a consultant for the World Bank, and so I think I can give 2 examples from different sides of the table, because one, I was an advisor within a government, so I could see approaching situations from government, and also from the World Bank side. And it's interesting when you look at how the two parts work together, and how what you learn in the program, not just and you do learn it even before you get to MIT. A lot of the classes will teach you something. So let's go through a couple of them. Uh, Now, I would say that we do learn very rigorous stats and economic econometric skills, and these are very important for what you do throughout your career. Uh, but it's what we also learn is in one of the classes that seems like it's a little bit lighter than some of the other courses, but goes through many of the different processes of working on the ground, collecting data and dealing with the different partners and stakeholders, and sort of dealing with issues with data. And so that's I'll hone into that specifically, and then I'll sort of broaden out a bit and try to make it quick. Um, uh, when you collect data on the ground, there can be some issues. From the government side, what I saw, it's difficult to organize and keep the data in certain ways. And so from within government, there's a lot of data silos, but there's also different stakeholders and different organizations and different individuals who are involved in collecting that data. And so pulling it together when I was an advisor within the Ministry of Finance, just finding who has the data, where it's stored, and so forth, how to get it in a certain format so that it'd be useful for partners and stakeholders and so forth, was a difficult thing. And then obviously whether this data has any biases and so forth. So that's one thing that I saw before I was in the program. And now working with the World Bank, one of the things I notice is that every now and then when you go to the field and you collect data, you also have these tiny little issues as well. So I'll give an example that just happened recently. So there's a district level that because I currently work with social protection and data collecting and working with a social protection delivery system platform. There's a certain region where from a district level, it's there are 2 different districts, but from the data level, it's one. And so when the data teams went and collected it, they sort of treated it as one, but from an administrative level, from a political level, it's sort of thought of as 2. So when we worked as a group when the data teams try to figure out how to deal with this, there are many different levels for you to work with. And now the reason why I want to tie this back to what you learn in the program, again, I'm talking about, I forget the name of the course, but there's one of the courses that we literally walk through the different ways of data collection and so forth. And you can sometimes gloss it over because you think of, well, it's not heavy economics. It's not so much talking about how to address the issues of the poor. It's more technical and so forth. But a lot of what we discuss is how you should deal with different clusters of information and how the data you collect has a lot to do with the type of information you can gather from it and how useful it becomes later on. And so just to give an example of some of the things that we do, some of the skills that I learned in the program that I furthered while I was at MIT, and that I realized that I'm using right now in my day-to-day job.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to move over to Satiq next. And so you identified early on that you wanted to help transform Armenia's capital markets. How did the MicroMasters in Finance support that vision and influence your trajectory as you entered the finance industry? So I think we're curious is kind of like, what kind of gaps did you see in the capital markets that you were thinking about addressing or looking at? And if there were any concepts from the finance program that influenced you as you were kind of figuring all this out.
Yeah, I want to say that I embarked on the journey of the MicroMaster in Finance program during my last year at during my bachelor's degree, and I had sort of some foundational skills in finance and knowledge. But whenever I started, it gave more depth to whatever I had. And provided more opportunities for discovering new concepts and obviously more advanced ones. I want to bring specific examples from specific courses. So we have a Foundations of Modern Finance course, which is sort of one of the core courses, whether it's a MicroMasters or Master in Finance program on campus. And we're discovering asset pricing, portfolio theory, market efficiency, and exactly market efficiency unit sparked and sort of enlarged my interest in one of the key components of capital markets development. So for the efficient asset pricing, market efficiency is a key. So during that unit, we were covering what are the essential components for market efficiency and how that informational propagation into the prices can form fair asset pricing. And in Armenia, that's exactly a gap I see, the propagation of information into prices, like fair asset pricing, let's say. And making some analysis on some companies which are issuers in the capital market of Armenia, I saw that there is a need to promote that market efficiency, and this led to rollout and preparation of the first ever earnings call in the capital markets of Armenia. So earnings call is an event when companies are presenting publicly their financial results, telling about their plans, and sort of this helps market to gain more information and help sort of over time to promote more efficient pricing. That's one thing. That's exactly a direct practical application of whatever I learned throughout the course. And also, like for a more long-term vision, it's we had a derivatives markets course, which is more on an advanced side. We're discovering use of different derivatives instruments for risk management purposes. And in Armenia, that part of the market is not very much developed and not very much in use. So I hope that in the future, by introducing more derivatives products in the market, we can sort of help to spread the risks more evenly within the market and make it more resilient. Also, another thing from the program, so we know that it's highly quantitative. So there is a course, Mathematical Methods for Quantitative Finance. We're discovering different time series modeling methods, application of linear algebra to asset pricing. And that's something which actually helped me to strengthen that modeling skills, quantitative modeling skills, which are supporting, for example, the macroeconomic projections That's something very important in asset management. You need to sort of understand what's going on, not only in the local economy, but around the world, and how it's impacting your local state of the economy. So that's something also which very much helped me on a daily basis, I would say.
All right, thank you. All right, so thank you all for your comments, and I'd like to bring us back together for a moment of reflection. So online learning at this level can be incredibly demanding. These are MIT courses, they are MIT hard. They, yeah, they take a lot of work, as I'm sure you know. And they take time, right? So it's not like a week of effort. Like this is a long-term commitment. So what I'm wondering is if each of you could share kind of like your mindset going into the program. Did you have moments of doubt? How did you deal with those? How did you balance it with like the rest of your life? And how did that work out for you? Did you make any adjustments along the way? Did you see that, you were burning yourself out, so you had to scale back in some areas, or were you seeing that, oh, this is going even better than I thought. Let me dig in and double down. I don't know. So if each of you could tell me a little bit about your experience as far as doing the work itself and how you kept motivated through the whole process, that would be fantastic to hear. So let's start with Sophia.
Sure. All right. So in my experience, it was very demanding. I actually did something a little bit crazy, which is I took all the 5 courses at the same time. I wasn't working at the time, but even then it was incredibly intense. I remember that I enrolled in the 5 courses thinking that I could do that part-time and then kind of look for a job in the other like part-time. Um, and it was not possible. I had to put many hours a day in order to like keep the pace of the courses. But I found that they were incredibly engaging. I didn't struggle with motivation at all. I thought it was very easy to follow and like feel excited about what I was learning. So I think when people ask me about advices on how to handle workload, I usually advise a few practical strategies. The first one is be realistic about how many courses you can take per term. I was able to do that because I was not working and I didn't have any other commitments. But if you are balancing work or family responsibilities, I think you need to be grounded. The second strategy is a schedule dedicate study time. I found it really helpful to block specific hours in a calendar and then reevaluate after a few weeks to see if the plan was still realistic. And then finally, take care of yourself. Like sleep well, eat well, exercise, spend time with family and friends. It sounds simple, but like those habits really help keep stress levels manageable.
Awesome. Yes, definitely important to keep the rest of your life going as well, right? So full enjoyment of the spectrum of life for sure. Okay. Let's see. Who do we want to have next? How about Satiq? How about if we hear from you?
Yeah. So referring to what Sofia said, we need to be really realistic, and stemming from that, we need to understand how we are sort of structuring our studies. So again, with motivation, I also didn't have any issues because I was seeing how day by day, with each completed unit, this acquired knowledge and skills are serving their purpose. And also I was lucky enough because at my workplace, really environment was very enabling, and I was exposed and I am exposed to things which were reinforcing whatever I was learning. So it was going back and forth. So whatever I learned is contributing to my work and vice versa. So it's a bit easier in that sense. But when you are working full-time, plus at the time when I was completing the courses, I was also a teaching associate at American University of Armenia. So it's a bit, workload was a bit crazy, but sometimes, yeah, it was not balanced enough, sleep and rest, like that was impossible to manage. But since that excitement gave some energy, and also the structured learning, sort of when I'm doing the theory, diving deep into the theory, when it's review, when it's time to practice, and it's really important. So for everyone who is considering to pursue the program, you really need to make sure you are practicing enough and reviewing enough so you are well prepared for all the final assessments. Yeah, just be prepared for uncertainties, like in timing and in comprehension of material. Don't be discouraged if you are feeling that something is overwhelming, because the material is, of course, rigorous. It's like master's level. It's obvious. Just enjoy whatever is coming along your way. And it's really the type of program which is helping to connect all the dots of your prior experiences and whatever you are learning within the program. So the experience will be very enriching. You might get a bit tired along the way, but the reward at the end will be larger. So just proper structured study plan and timing will help you, because the motivation is coming by default, I would say.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Mylan, too? How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to be the odd one, and you know, it was not easy for me in the beginning. Yeah, I mean, I had been out of school for at least like 15 years or so. So when I went back into it, I had not taken calculus in like a very long time, and so the initial courses, I took some of the easier courses up front, and I took too many at the same time. I was working, but I thought I had a more relaxed schedule, and then I had more work to do. I was in Liberia. I'm still in Liberia right now, so knock on wood. I had like power issues. It was dry season now, so yeah. And and so some of the issues I had was I hope I didn't freeze.
No,
Okay,
you're
I didn't
good.
freeze. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so I would have power outages. I had to choose what time to work and so forth. I actually set up solar at my house because it was just impossible for me to work and like deal with power outages all the time. But yeah, so literally it hit me hard in the beginning. I worked my way through it. I started the program a while ago. One of the things I noticed when I got into MIT is that I at least I think that it seemed that a lot of people took it over a shorter period of time. I think I took about 2 years, at least a year and a half or so, to go through the entire program. So I would say to anyone who's like thinking that, you know, it maybe I don't have time to do this so quickly and so forth, I would say you can pace yourself. It's still okay. I literally took the on the fact that you can audit some courses. So I audited some courses to sort of introduce myself to the material, or at least I pretended I did, and I kind of just took the first few weeks and so forth, and then dabbed around a few other weeks. And again, it was still helpful to get familiar. I was there at a time where you could retake. I don't know exactly how it is right now, but I retook some courses. And I think at that time you could even not do the proctored exam and it still count as an audited course, and so didn't do it later. And so I took full advantage of the flexibility in the program. I guess that's the easiest way to say it, to sort of get myself through and get myself in a right rhythm and so forth. I think I took the in the DDP program. There's a data. I think Sarah teaches that course. It's like data analysis for social scientists. I took that course 3 times. I tested it 2 times. And so in the last time I did very well. In the previous time I also did relatively well. But I think the third time I did it because I wanted to really improve my score to get to when I was applying for the master's program. So to sum that all up, I would say that it was difficult for me to adjust. I did a lot of things at the same time, but it was a learning experience. I enjoyed it. I retook some courses. And so if you're struggling, you need to try a second time or so forth. Don't worry about it. You can still make it all the way through.
That's great. And I want to highlight that because I think that the flexibility of the program and that the courses are offered multiple times, because you're absolutely right. That is, I mean, some people take several years to finish the program because, I mean, and that's kind of the point of the reason that the program is offered the way that it is because everybody has different life circumstances, and we want to make sure that people have as much opportunity as possible to do the courses and to do the program, whatever your circumstances are. And I think even to that point, there's one of the things that you've mentioned is like the even the connectivity, right? Like, what if you can't get online for a week? What are you going to do? And I think part of some of the functionality, which I won't get too deeply into that because it's very, you know, details, but there are other things like being able to download the videos and watch them offline and things like that. So we do the best that we can to make it as accessible as possible. So be sure to consider that if you're thinking about the MicroMasters and are concerned about different things. Like, believe me, a lot of people are concerned about a lot of different things. And we try to take those into account in the design of the program, while at the same time maintaining the rigor and the academic integrity that is so important to the credential. Okay, so I had one more question, but I think that you guys have already answered it because you talked about, maintaining your motivation, ways that you dealt with like, any doubts that you had or making adjustments to your processes. So I'm going to add in a question that has not been shared with you, but I don't think it'll be a hard one. Was there anything during the program, and it could be anything, it could be something, I'm looking for something that was surprising, something that you learned that was not taught in the program, so I'm not talking about like, did you learn about particular types of equations, but did you learn something about yourself? Did you learn something surprising that you were not expecting to learn from the program? Yeah, so I'm just interested from more of um, a point of view of I don't know, just like a surprise of something that you had not thought of or that you were not expecting to experience or learn. So I'm going to actually go in the order that you are showing on my screen, shake it up a little bit. So Satiq, I'm going to start with you, and then Mylan, we're going to go to you. Okay, Satiq.
Yeah, so I think the structure of the program and like the rigor by itself indirectly led to me being very comfortable with uncertainty. I will explain why. So whenever you are getting well equipped with the knowledge, skills, with the practice, you almost always start to understand that you can find a way. So to any problem, like you can solve basically anything. There is anything impossible. So I would say that if to highlight one is to dealing with uncertainty with confidence, and also and just at some points you're enjoying it because you're saying, oh, there's a problem X. So what type of solution I can have for it? And you are starting to dig into your skill set, into knowledge, and you are starting to connect the dots. At first, it's not working out. You are not getting discouraged. You are trying it the second time. And it's very applicable to my projects, which I did at the workplace or analysis or research. So yeah, you're starting to be very comfortable with uncertainty, and that's a very practical skill which can be disseminated to all the areas of life, not only professional, like academic or personal life. So you become more stress resistant, I would say.
That's great. Thank you. And yeah, I could kind of see that. It's almost like, it's like it's a risk, right? You're taking a risk of trying to do something that maybe you're not comfortable with or something, or you're not sure how it's going to turn out, right? And so like taking the risk that it may not work the first time, but you can come back and try again.
Yeah.
And just, and so it's really just like, trusting maybe in your own problem solving skills, right? Because then you're absolutely right. Then you can basically, deal with any problem that comes up because now you know your skill set of how to approach anything that you want to try to accomplish. So that's fantastic. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go to Mylan too. What do you have to say?
Yeah. So I'm gonna cheat and say three things. Um, First is MIT students are really smart. You can you know when you watch the videos, you kind of like these kids thinking calculus. You're just like math smart and everything, and it may be daunting at first. And then the second thing I would say is that the professors in the videos are exactly the same way in person. They really are. You if you watch those tapes with where Abhijit like will talk over a student as they're answering a question because he's already knows the question and he knows the answer and so forth. He does that in class. And it's exactly the same thing. So they are exactly, these are real people. It was fortunate to see them. And then of course, and last thing I would say is you belong. You belong there. I belong there. And that, I think that's the biggest thing, is that at first, of course you're like, oh man, everyone's smart, so smart. These are Nobel laureates, and this is such an amazing atmosphere. And if you get a chance to be at MIT, it's even more jaw dropping, and you just get awestruck by the environment, and you may question whether you belong in an environment like that. And yes, you do. The courses that you take online, they teach you things, and you learn in a way where when you're thrown into that environment, whether it's at MIT or it's at your future job or your current job or anything you do in your life afterwards, or and so forth, you will realize that it's not a fluke. You belong there. So that's what I would have to say. That's what I learned.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's actually quite beautiful. And all right, so Sophia, how about you?
Yeah. Um, for me, was a journey full of surprises. As I mentioned, I was looking into shifting careers, but I got into the courses because like few people recommended them to me. I was not fully aware of how much they were gonna change my life. So I think when I started taking economics or econometrics, I was shocked that I could enjoy something so much. I had studied physics for 4 years at university, and I didn't enjoy it. Like no comparison of enjoyment. Um, I was shocked about like the content of the courses. I loved like kind of like using data to take decisions regarding like social impact. And I didn't know it existed. So it kind of like opened a whole different world for me. And I found myself kind of like um, really excited to learn more, which was a new side of myself. So it was a whole kind of like learning journey, both in the technical sense, but also like introspective.
That's fantastic. What a great thing to learn about yourself. That you, right? You're like 4 years of college, and I'm learning that now.
I know. I shouldn't say this
Oh,
out loud.
no, that just shows even more perseverance that you made it for 4 years of college and didn't know at that point that you loved learning. So that's something to say anyway. All right. So thank you for all your thoughtful reflections and for humoring my last question. I appreciate it. And so we got some questions from the audience, and I think I'm going to take a quick look at these. And I'm not going to say that you all need to answer all of these, but I'm going to say the question. And if one of you has an answer, that's great. Just start speaking. If you don't, then I'll move on to the next question. How about that? Because I think some of these you kind of handled in different ways. But if you want to add to it, that would be fantastic. Okay, so we have a question from Flora. How do you handle a period of chaotic life events with a heavy workload added on top? So I know you kind of all talked about handling your workload, but I think I'm curious that if any of you had something that unexpectedly happened, and you don't have to say it what it is, but like, you have your plan, you have your schedule, and then one week you just can't stick to your schedule because of something happened in the rest of your life. Like, how did you catch up and how did you handle that when that happened? Anybody? Anyone?
Yeah, I can give a suggestion. And so and I'm sure you'll see by when you're doing the program, one yeah, I advise getting ahead. I think we get the courses like weeks in advance, so you should start reading ahead and so forth and answering it ahead. Also, just understand that I think the final exam, the proctored exam, is very important, and as particularly if you want to apply to the master's programs. So you can sort of gauge. Perhaps you may struggle in a week. I think that in some of the, I don't want to say, there might be some ways. If you look at your score, I think sometimes some of the items are dropped or so forth.
Mhm.
I can't remember completely. So there's ways where you can sort of work out. So a life event that occurs in a week doesn't necessarily disrupt your grade at the end of the semester. Obviously, if it happens around the proctored exam, it makes things more difficult. But even that, I think is a like a 2 week period and so forth. I know there's final exams and midterms spread out or quizzes and so forth, but again, those in the problem sets, but you can work your way through it. So my advice is just don't give up. If you need to, contact support and see if there's any options for it, because this is a program that's been going on for a very long time. In my understanding, there's like tens of thousands or so of students that have come through, and so it's a small group of people that will are there to support you. So I think there's some flexibility built in.
Awesome. Anyone else? Sati?
Also, yeah, regarding the finance program, in our case, we have more flexibility because we have an end point for the course and we don't have deadlines for the problem sets, graded assignments, and for the final exam as well. Previously, it was not the case because courses were offered in a like per semester. Now the duration of the course is like almost for 2 years. So I personally had weeks when I was very busy at work. I had many deadlines and I just paused for a while, but for the next week, I completed, I don't know, 3 units for a single course. So there is a lot of flexibility, and you have always TAs, CTAs. I myself, I'm a CTA for the program as well. So we're always happy to help you and help you navigate through difficulties. And as Milentu mentioned, the support is working perfectly. So you will not face any difficulties. You just need to be comfortable and calm to be able to structure the rest, because panic will not add any like benefit to that.
That's words of wisdom right there. Panic does not add anything. I'm gonna like put that on my wall. Thank you. Sophia, do you have anything that you want to add?
I think they covered everything.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right, so this one, several people have asked this, and the question is, what tools did you use to help you stay on track, and what habit was the most beneficial while doing the MicroMaster? So you kind of maybe alluded to this earlier, but I think what people are asking are like, did you literally use any tools? Like, did you use a project management software? Did you use a task management software? Did you use your like, I think that's what they mean by tools. Like literally, like not just doing the work, but the work to do the work, I think is kind of the question there. I'm gonna just open it up and whoever has I probably shouldn't do that because then everyone's like, who should talk? Sophia, how about you?
I can jump to this one. I think, okay, so in terms of specific tools, I didn't. And I think the courses themselves are super useful to keep track of. Like they're structured according weeks. and kind of like it's been a while since I think it's like 4 years since I did them, but I remember that they keep track of like completion rate, and it was just so engaging and kind of like easy to keep an idea of how you are doing. In terms of like managing myself, I think it was very useful for me to have a routine. It really helped me to stay consistent and like do the same things at the same time every day. Overall in life, routine helps for consistency. So
All right, thank you. Sadiq, you have anything?
Yeah, something very simple. You're opening up an Excel spreadsheet. You are putting like course code for each worksheet, and you are just pulling out the names of the units. One column for the problem sets, one column for the recitation session review, then the second round review, and you are just doing tick marks. And sometimes you are doing it easily. Sometimes you are sleep deprived, but you still need to do that. I encourage everyone to push forward and ignore at some points that you are tired. It will reward you at the end. So yeah, just simple tracking of whatever I did. If I missed, for example, I had planned, I don't know, 2 units for 1 week, but I did only one. That's not a problem because again, due to flexibility, you can manage
Mhm.
everything. So just keep track of what are you doing uh, of the initial study process and the review. The review is very important because it's like stamping whatever you learn throughout the program, and you are really enjoying the final exam. It might sound weird, but you will enjoy it.
Yeah, I think going into that feeling confident is definitely
Yeah.
contributes to that, right?
Yeah.
All right. Mylan too, do you have anything you want to add? No? Okay. All right. So let's see here. We've got all right here. Let's see here. We've got okay, here's a good question. And I'm gonna make this the last question. So I know you guys, I feel like we're all like on a quiz show and you're like, what's the question gonna be? So here's the question is looking back, what do you wish you had known before you started the program? And so I'm gonna call on you this time so that you don't have to be like, am I talking next? So Sophia, I'm gonna start with you.
um, sure. Um, I think probably I would um like to be a little bit more intentional in some sense. Like I didn't plan ahead of time to actually apply to MIT and complete the full masters. And I think by yeah, like it ended up happening, but it was kind of like a journey full of surprises, as I was mentioning. I think um kind of like planning ahead a little bit more like how long it would take me to complete the courses, being a bit more intentional about like structuring the courses and like thinking through how much time of my personal life would take because it did take a lot. So um, yeah, I'm kind of like planning ahead of time and then also um, planning for the application to MIT with some more time and not doing like things last minute.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you kind of were finding your way along that path. So there's only so
Yeah,
much planning you can do when you're not, when you're open to go in any directions. I think there's only so much you can do, right?
yeah.
All right. So how about Satiq? Anything that you would like to know?
Um, I think if I would knew some things, it wouldn't be that exciting as it was. Uh, yeah, because I think the audience got the point that I'm really enjoying unexpected things coming up the way. But I would say I would be less afraid of stepping in. Like I would be less stressed at the beginning if I would knew how close the program is bringing you to the MIT community and how much support you are getting throughout. So yeah, for everyone who is starting their way, you are really becoming a part of the ecosystem, I would say. So don't
Yeah.
be afraid.
That's a really good point. Like I feel like sometimes people might think that like, oh, I'm doing it at home by myself and I'm by myself and I'm working on this. But there really is like I think especially as you start getting into the program, like you'll start seeing familiar names, and people take all different types of time to do the program, but I think that there you do have your cohort when you start, except for finance, because as you noted, finance is self-paced, but there still is an active forum where you can talk to people, and even though you may be in different points, you're still all on the same program, and so I think yeah, that might be a little surprising for people that you're not quite as alone as you think you might be. Okay, who did I miss? Mylan, I think are you next?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, I could give a list of like academic topics that I wish I knew more of before I jumped in, but I would say that I think Sati kind of covered a little bit what I was going to say, that it is there is like a network of people, and they're real people, and many of them are DEDP learners and even MIT students that are in the forums. And then I guess what I would say is I think when I think we sat down during the MIT Masters program, we sat down with Esther and we sort of asked her a little bit about the program, and that just something I think it's a good thing for everyone to sort of know, because I think when the program started, there's like MITx, and then there's this edX thing, and then now there's like a whole community of different online programs that are out there, and it's somewhat difficult to understand like where MITx fits in this whole world or universe of like online learning. There's even MIT has different online learning programs and so forth. And I think like the story that she gave was along the lines of how like that a bunch of them really put their feet down and on how they wanted to make sure that the quality of the education, the way that the direction of the program was something that they could stand by with their reputation and so forth. At a time when you saw a lot of high profitability within digital learning, online learning, boot camps, and so forth were taking off, and there was a lot of money to be had in telling someone, oh, watch me online, I can teach you this and so forth, and you can just make infinite amounts of money. And especially around COVID and so forth, and I think edX had become these different organizations and so forth. So I think what I'm trying to get at is I didn't know how dedicated the people who created this program were to the program, and how it is to this day. And I think looking back and looking around at other programs that are out there, and you don't really, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit out there now and so forth, but I think the vision and the mission and the intention of this program is something that we should be really happy and mindful of, that the people that currently run it and the people that ran it in the past were deliberate and made sure to keep this going, and to use a phrase that she kept saying throughout the time we were there, because you would always joke, we would joke that we were statisticians, and you're like, oh yeah, we're like a random process and so forth. She's like, no, so you guys are not random, you're not random, like we chose you, we made decisions to bring you there. And I think that extends to the entire MITx MicroMasters program and so forth, that it's not by random that this program exists. It's deliberate intentions and arguments, and I'm sure like people putting their foot down and deciding to find sources of funding and other ways to maintain this program and maintain it in the way that it's been. And so yeah, so very long answer, but that's what I learned when I was there, and I just want to share that with the rest of the world, that they know that this is a program like no other.
Thank you. Wow, that is like the perfect ending sentence for this panel. So I appreciate it. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to our wonderful panelists for sharing your experience, insights, and wisdom. And thank you to all of us out there in the world for joining us today. So your stories remind us that resilience, curiosity, and commitment can unlock extraordinary opportunities. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in. We welcome you to keep learning with MITx, OpenCourseWare, and Open Learning. We also welcome you to support our work by sharing our resources with your friends, colleagues, and families. You can do that on social media. You can do it via email. You can tell them about it, however you want to do that, please do. Sharing your experience and story using our free MIT resources. And if you are in a position to do so, please consider donating to support our efforts and thousands of people who use our free resources every day. And lastly, I want to note that we are participating in the annual MIT Giving Day on March 12th. It's a fun day when the MIT community and friends come together and support one another in programs like ours. I'll also be in conversation with Kurt Newton from OCW and Yvonne about the power of free knowledge, how MIT Open Learning is shaping tomorrow's open education landscape. So I hope you can join us for that event as well. And please have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for joining us.